Well, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, and thank you on a lovely autumn day outside on a Friday afternoon for staying on for the graveyard slot. Absolutely wonderful, and I'm very glad that you've given me the opportunity to share a few business thoughts with a political party that is in the ascendancy. It's, as you just heard from Steve, I'm a lucky lad, born on the wrong side of the tracks in Birmingham, to a mum and a dad who gave me love and enthusiasm but no money. And so when I became a peer of the realm on that June day in 2007, it was rather special in the Jones household, and I'd actually agreed with the then Prime Minister, Gordon Brown. I said, I'll do the job, but I will not join the party. I said, don't take it personally, Gordon, I wouldn't join the other lot either. I've never belonged to a political party, and I don't intend to start then or now. My constituency is business, and I believe that business people should relate to, work with, and have discourse and dialogue with any democratically elected representative in the nation. And therefore, that's another reason why I'm so glad that you've invited me to give you a few thoughts today. But it was a bit special. I was going to be the only minister in government there's ever been, and still to this day there's ever been, that didn't belong to the party of government. I did it for my country, but not for political tribalism. And also, and my dad died in 2002, but wherever he is, I hope he thinks the kid did all right. And so I was a bit of the media wanted to make a bit of a fuss about this. So I got this call from quite a few of you will know this, you get the call in the afternoon, would you do the media round next morning? And it starts with Radio 5 Live's Wake Up to Money at 5:30. About 200,000 sad insomniacs listen to that. And it gets to about 300,000 by 6 o'clock. Great programme, actually. And then you move from there, round the corner, into the Today programme, where John Humphreys and Jim Naughtie interview you. and then you go on from there and you do BBC TV Business Breakfast. We don't do that anymore because that's gone to Manchester. But that was the idea in 2007. So it was my turn to do this, and a bit of a news of the day. Would I do it? Of course I would. We lived in Marylebone. We'll send a car for you, Lord Jane. Thank you very much. So the car was going to come at 5 o'clock. So at about 20 to 5, the alarm goes off. I actually stifle it. I get into the lounge. I have a Bombay bath. I get into my stuff. Downstairs I go. Hadn't woken up head office. And outside, glorious June morning. Good morning, world. Take me. My arrogance, my pomp knew no bounds. No car. 5:05, no car. 5:10, no car. So I thought, right, jolly good. Better do something about that. So I dialed the number that the BBC give you in times of trouble. The one Jonathan Ross uses. And so I speak to the lady at the BBC, asked her how the Severn payments were going, and I said, where's my car? She said, oh, just a minute. And she said, yes, I've spoken to your driver. He's 5 minutes from the studio, and you're in the back of it. This, my friends, is a true story. I told her that I was standing in Rossmore Road in Marylebone on a glorious morning, and I was nowhere near the back of a car. She said something very helpful, which was expletive deleted, put the phone down. I'm standing there, all my arrogance, all my pomp had frittered away. I thought, you can't do this to me, this is my big day. I'm not that special, but it's a big day. Anyway, about 5 minutes later, around the corner comes this limousine. Pulls up, rear door opens, and out gets what I can only describe as a creation. This creation was about 25 years old, filthy white t-shirt, tracksuit bottoms, trainers, baseball cap the wrong way round, on the old dog. And in this hand, at 5:30 or 5:15 of a summer's morning, he had a can of lager. And as he walks from the car off up Rossmore Road, I heard him say into the phone, "And they think I'm some geezer called Lord Digby Jones." So I get in the back of the car, head off to Wood Lane, and it has a happy ending. I made it just as the red light went on for 5:30, walked in, sat down, took the first question. So it had a happy ending. But I did say to the driver in the car, "What was all that about?" He said, "Oh, it's very easy." He said, "I turned up actually at 4:45 outside your flat, and that guy was sitting on the wall outside drinking his beer." So I wound down the window and asked, "Are you Lord Digby Jones?" He said, "Yes." So I said, "Hop in," and the rest is history. And it's a very, very good lesson in the fact that in all of the pomp and the arrogance that the public life bubble gives you, never forget that you're just a 25-year-old kid on the bottle sitting in Marylebone on a June morning. One thing I'm very, very pleased about being asked here is I have a bit of a theory which I put into practice, which is that business is actually overlooked by political parties. They just take us for granted. And therefore I always write to all the parties, and I always say, I'm here, I'm a crossbench peer, I have no vested interest other than wealth creation, hopefully conducted on a socially inclusive basis. And on that basis, can I come and engage with your party faithful at your conference? I do it every year, and sometimes they say yes, sometimes they say no, and sometimes one or two parties say, "Could you just spell that word business again, please?" And because you see, why it is so important is if you think about it, my friends, we are the only agent in our society that generates wealth, tax, jobs, or a public sector. When you make wealth in a business, you can only do one of three things with it, actually. You can reward the shareholders who took the risk by way of dividend or capital gain on sale, and they'll pay tax on it. Or you can keep it in the business as retained profit, and you'll pay tax on it. Or you can employ people, bonuses and all, and they'll pay tax on it. And that tax goes in part to pay for good, decent, hard-working people working in our public sector, the teachers, the nurses, the doctors, the policemen, the soldiers, the prison officers, and they pay tax on it. But if it wasn't for the wealth that business actually creates, there would not be one single job in the private or public sector. There wouldn't be one penny of taxation ever generated anywhere. In fact, there would not be a public sector. And I actually don't think that politicians get that. It is very, very important that we have balance in our society. It's extremely important that politicians reach out to all parts of society. A lot of those interests will not be mine. But I would just ask at times, will you stop making us the whipping boy? Will you stop believing every businessman and woman in this country is at it? And will you actually start to understand that unless you work with the grain of wealth creation, if you don't work with the grain of social inclusion in that wealth creation, then there will be no jobs and no tax, because this is no longer the West's time. This is Asia's century. This is a time when China wants your lunch and India wants your dinner. This is a time when, look at Brazil. 1 in 5 of all the tons of food imported by the developed world, 20% of all the food that the developed world import every day comes from Brazil. They've just discovered Saudi Arabia offshore Rio de Janeiro. Saudi's got the biggest oil deposits on earth. They've just discovered oil of the same quantum deep sea off Rio. And they're a democracy. Brazil is going to have an enormous say in the rest of this century. So is Malaysia, Indonesia, Vietnam, Thailand, Singapore. So is India, so is China, and many, many more. So we have to be fit for purpose. We have to make sure that we can create the wealth, generate the jobs, produce and generate the taxation, so that our children and their children actually have the ability to stand up, be counted, and have a quality of life in a century where there are others thousands of miles away who are driving this world forward at a frightening speed in a competitive and quality way. Now, to do it, we therefore need a little bit of realization and recognition about what is required. And that's all I ask of politicians. Just meet me halfway. Just understand that you need us, just like we need the other parts of our society, be they teachers or doctors or nurses or armies or policemen or whatever. First recognition is we've got to understand that since about the 1950s, from the west coast of California to the Ural Mountains of Russia, from the Arctic Circle to the toe of Italy, we have been lied to. You see, whether they were Republican or Democrat, whether they were conservative, Labour, Liberal, whether they were the Christian Socialists or the Christian Democrats or the Christian Socialists in Germany, whether they're the UMP in France, whether they're the 287 political parties in Italy, wherever they were or whatever they did, they badly wanted power, and therefore they wanted a vote, and therefore they basically said, vote for me and you can have it all. You can have high public spending, you can have low taxation, and there's a gap, and we'll go and borrow it. And for decades, they've gone and borrowed it. Well, I've got news for them. The people who lent it want it back. And the people who've got it to lend again might, if they're so minded, but if they do, they're going to give you some stonking great conditions you're going to find pretty painful. That is a fact of life in a developed capitalistic economy in the 21st century. Just get used to it, get real, and don't fall for anybody who says it's going to be different. That means we need to spend less and get more from our public sector. I don't want a single public servant in receipt of 1 penny of my taxation to work any harder, thank you. I just want them to work more cleverly. I don't want people putting in more hours. I want more productivity for the hour they're there already. I want a better use of kit. I want a better standard of skilling. Because the one thing that's not going to be around, it's not a British argument, it could be anywhere in the developed world. The one thing that's not going to be around is more money. So get used to it. And stop promising people things you can't deliver. Second up. There's a little girl. She was born over the river at St. Thomas's just a few hours ago. She has a 1 in 3 chance of being alive 100 years today. If it's a little boy, it's a 1 in 4 chance. 25% of all the males born in the developed world this afternoon will be alive 100 years today. So, what do you call a society when you say, well, for the first sort of 18 years of your life, people are going to have to pay for you? The wealth that's generated by the nation, and half of it given by taxation, it's going to pay for you. You're going to be actually costing society. But then we'd like you for sort of, if you don't mind, a sort of 30, 40 years job. Can you do a bit for us? And then from when you're about 60 until you're 100, it's okay. We'll look after you again and we'll pay for it. Do you know what they call that system of government? Greece. You see, there was never enough money to pay pensions. It's just no one ever lived long enough to find out. You worked till you're 65, you did the decent thing. You died at 67. And if you got through to 75 or 80, you were living off the pension contributions of people who didn't make 50. It might be unpalatable to a politician to actually give people bad news, but they prefer it to no news, and they know the difference. So first up, we have a different public sector environment. Second up, we cannot afford to retire in our 60s. People are going to want to work in their 70s. They're going to be healthy, they'll live longer, they want to generate money, they want self-respect, self-esteem, they want to participate. It's not something to be frightened of. And then third up, we've got to be competitive, globally competitive. And that means we need to trade around the world. We need to earn our living around the world. We need to ensure that this great trading nation, this open market, more open than anywhere else. You know, frankly, the Americans make the French look open in their protectionism. The French have just made yogurt a matter of national security. We have none of that. We are the place where people come to invest their money, to trade, to generate wealth. We are the place where people they're free to shape their own destiny. And if it's Asia's time, we have the chance to go and relate, do business, share ideas, kill ignorance, which is the mother of prejudice, and actually generate at home an income that can actually look after our kids and their grandchildren. Now, to do that, we need badly a reformed European Union, because we are right in the middle of a group of nations that is marching valiantly towards 1970. We need such reform because it is ridiculous that if we're going to get out there and create wealth so we can pay tax and build schools and hospitals at home, we've got to compete against the Chinese and the Indians and the Brazilians. Why do we, as taxpayers into Brussels, put more money into subsidising the common agricultural policy than we do into our universities? Why do we have a law that says work more than 48 hours a week and I'll put you in prison? The Chinese must think it's their birthday, frankly. If someone doesn't want to work more than 48 hours a week, that is their choice and we should respect it. But there shouldn't be a law that stops you. And in that respect, we really badly need a reformed Europe. And I don't mean the little stuff. I mean the big stuff. And actually, this should not be Britain's argument. This should not be a British, we are different, we are special, we want to change, we want to come out, we want to stay. It shouldn't be there at all. This actually should be the leaders of Europe thinking, this is the only thing we can do if we're going to actually set up a century fit for our grandchildren. I want Cameron and Merkel to lead on this. I want them actually from within the Eurozone and without the Eurozone, I want them to go together and lead and produce fundamental reform on the basis that they show leadership, they show courage, and they say, actually, if you guys don't want to come with me, we're going there. Now come with us or stay behind, especially those in Southern Europe. It is that important. It is that urgent. It can't wait. So on that basis, what we need to do is actually have a referendum as quickly as possible. Not because of what we may prejudge the issue. I will make up my mind whether I say yes or no when I've heard all the arguments, all the facts on both sides in a clear debate. But because, by putting it off to the long grass, we are going to create uncertainty in the investment environment. We're going to incur people thinking, I don't know whether I'll actually go and do it in Britain because it's a bit iffy, don't know where they're going to be, oh dear me. I don't want that. I want an open market that's giving certainty to potential customers and investors. That means get this sorted once and for all as quickly as possible. Now, That means a debate about how it will affect different parts of society. I'm thrilled to bits today, for instance, that I heard Nigel Farage talking about things like, let's talk energy, let's talk what we do with shale gas receipts and the Sovereign Wealth Fund. I've just heard about what you want to do with education. What should you want to do with transport? How would these items affect Britain within or without a radically reformed EU? You've got to, as a party, take it away from the single issue and link it into your vision for what a country looks like in years to come, within or without, and then have the debate on the facts of the matter. I'll tell you one for certain. If we came out, there would be a free trade treaty with most countries in Europe in 24 hours. Why? Why? Because countries like Germany need us just as much as we need them, and they're not stupid. So on that basis, what we need to do with that is get the facts of the matter. But similarly, on the other way, we have to understand that we do punch our weight a little bit better in a global environment if we're actually coming at it as a united force with very similar views in India and Asia's century. So we have to actually understand where we stand as opposed to falling for, as you heard just now from Steve, lies, damn lies and statistics. And then lastly, and probably the most important of all actually, if we do not skill our people, if we do not have an education system that after 11 years of full-time, free, compulsory education, that's what you get, 5 to 16, when half the kids come out of school who cannot read, write and count to the standard expected of an 11-year-old. If we do not have that statistic, which is now currently repeated in Germany, in Spain, in Italy, if we do not link that up, get it to a point where people have some skin in the game of their aspiration for their future because they feel free enough and skilled enough to deliver what I've just been talking about, then we will not deliver a country that is fit for our grandchildren. We will not deliver a country that will actually produce the wealth so they can have a 70, 80, 90-year-old life that is fulfilled and safe. And we will not be able to actually punch our weight around the world, be it in or outside the EU, simply because we won't have the skills to compete. Now that is the wide issue on which you paint your tapestry of what you believe. Please engage with business. You are going to be in the spotlight like never before for the next 6 months to a year because of the EU elections next May. You are going to be seen, asked, tested more than you've ever been. Please take with you today the business message of wealth creation in a competitive environment and argue the European case as you see it in a way that assists wealth creation, that assists a kid to get a future, assists an older person to be able to have a society where they feel safe. Actually, if we can pull this off in a reasoned way, then I think the EU elections will actually be a massive wake-up call for the patronising people who just tap people like me on the head and say, there, you're not party political, you don't count. I think it also will be a big wake-up call for the metropolitan elite who actually believe that whatever is decided in South East England applies in South Shields. And I want it to be a big wake-up call to Angela Merkel and David Cameron, because the reform that is needed is so huge. I have my doubts if the French or the Spanish or the Italians will actually go with it. But actually to come to the country with a reformed agenda calls for leadership and courage in negotiation. And in that, the jury is out, and that is your role. If we actually as a nation can pull this off in the name of our children and grandchildren, they will say, well done. If we fail, my friends, they will never forgive us. Thank you very much.